It's Popples. Viral news and trending stories.
Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back. Not this time. Isiah Thomas, once an NBA legend, is now facing whispers of the downfall didn't begin quietly. It began loudly and publicly. He points to one moment that changed everything: the collapse of the Continental Basketball Association, the CBA, the NBA's longtime pipeline for future talent, a league that survived for decades until Isiah Thomas took control. Stephen A. says he watched it all unravel in real time. Back in 2006, during a private phone call, Smith confronted Thomas head-on. No filters, no mercy. He accused Isiah of dismantling the league from the inside, firing staff, rejecting an $11 million rescue deal from David Stern, and walking away while chaos followed. 18 months. That's all it took. Players went unpaid, owners turned on each other, lawsuits piled up, and the league that once fed the NBA was gone. Stephen A.'s question was simple and brutal. How was this any different from what was happening now? Years later, Smith would recall that moment publicly, describing it as the call where he believes Isiah Thomas should have been removed from power, for good. For Stephen A., this wasn't a fall from grace.
I called Isiah Thomas and I said, "I'm so sorry from the bottom of my heart. I have to call for you to be fired. You have to go." I said, "It's just too bad. You got too much going on." And Thomas, according to Stephen, knew it. He knew at that time he probably needed to go.
The call-out wasn't personal. It was earned. In 1999, Isiah Thomas bought the Continental Basketball Association, a 55-year institution, for roughly $10 million. What he sold next was a dream. NBA partnerships, national TV exposure, a league expanding beyond 20 teams. Owners believed him. His name carried weight. His access opened doors. But optimism didn't last long. Former Commissioner Gary Hunter remembers the shift, from excitement to panic. Almost immediately, player salaries were slashed, weekly pay dropped, talent fled. The pipeline that made the CBA valuable to the NBA began to dry up. And the promises? They never arrived. No television deals, no NBA crossover events, no national sponsors. Instead, the league hemorrhaged cash. Teams missed payroll. Players went unpaid for months. Lawsuits stacked up. Stephen A. Smith never stopped pointing at the same issue: pressure, politics, power. Things, he said, Isiah Thomas was never built to handle. Behind the scenes, every head coach in the league, not some, all of them, veteran coaches, men who built the CBA's reputation as the NBA's premier development system, were gone overnight. Chaos replaced stability. And then, the fatal mistake. The NBA offered Thomas a lifeline: $11 million plus profit sharing to fold the CBA into what would become a new developmental league. Thomas wanted more. The NBA walked. They launched the NBDL on their own, cut off the CBA's annual subsidy, and erased its primary talent pipeline in one move. Stephen A. called it ego, pure and simple. 18 months after Isiah arrived as the savior, the league was bankrupt. Salaries slashed, coaches fired, checks bouncing, owners in court. The final blow came when Thomas took the Indiana Pacers, no transparency, right as the bills piled up. No one could act. No one could see the books. Teams defaulted, and a 55-year league collapsed in silence. The Continental Basketball Association filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, more than $300,000 in unpaid debt left behind. One team alone claimed Isiah Thomas owed them nearly that amount in guarantees. A 55-year institution was gone. Stephen A. Smith never forgot. From that moment on, his criticism followed Thomas everywhere, especially to New York. For Stephen A., a lifelong Knicks fan, oversaw one of the darkest stretches in franchise history, a 96-140 record, the highest payroll in the league, and no direction. The move that defined the chaos came in 2004. Stephon Marbury arrived in a blockbuster trade, then immediately received a massive extension. The scoring was real, but so were the problems. A ball-dominant star, a fractured locker room, a roster that didn't fit together. Stephen A. kept calling it out, year after year, blaming management, not players, for a culture built on fear and dysfunction. The money only made it worse. $77 million for Marbury, $60 million for Eddie Curry with a no-trade clause, $30 million for Jerome James after one good playoff run. James barely played, the production vanished, the bills didn't. By 2010, the Knicks had absorbed over $180 million in luxury tax penalties. Then came Larry Brown, a Hall of Fame coach, a 5-year deal, and immediate conflict. Brown's system clashed with the roster. Public criticism followed. The team collapsed. Thomas fired Brown after one season, then refused to pay him, triggering yet another lawsuit. For Stephen A., it was confirmation. In his memoir, he didn't hold back. He called the era disgusting, said it broke the spirit of the franchise. Ego trades, scandals, and finally, a sexual harassment lawsuit settled for $1.5 million. But the story didn't end there. When rumors surfaced in 2023 that Isiah Thomas might be advising Phoenix Suns ownership, Stephen A. sounded the alarm, publicly questioning whether history was about to repeat itself. His 2 seasons as head coach of the New York Knicks were brutal, a winning percentage barely above 30%, and in New York, failure doesn't fade, it follows you. For critics, that stretch became the most explosive trials in NBA history. Testimony painted a workplace spiraling out of control, verbal abuse, degrading language, and unchecked behavior at the highest levels. The courtroom revelations ignited backlash across sports media and beyond. The jury ruled against the organization. Millions were awarded. MSG settled to stop the bleeding. But the damage was already done. Legal fees mounted, public trust collapsed, and despite being fired for cause, Thomas walked away with a massive severance. The scandal exposed more than harassment. It revealed a culture completely off the rails. Allegations surfaced of inappropriate relationships, reckless conduct, and leadership that ignored every boundary. All of it unfolded while the Knicks were losing badly. Fans chanted for Thomas's firing. Sponsors wavered. Commissioner David Stern called it a public relations nightmare for the league. And still, it didn't end there. At Florida International University, Thomas's coaching tenure brought more trouble: poor results, NCAA violations, recruiting improprieties, conflicts of interest. An investigation revealed he was secretly consulting for the Knicks while coaching at the college level, violating NCAA rules and ethical standards. The fallout forced resignations. 2012, the reaction was complicated. Players walked out in protest, calling him a father figure. Loyalty ran deep, but the damage was already done. NCAA investigations lingered, and a permanent cloud hung over the program long after Thomas was gone. And then the story shifted from failures to feuds. Few rivalries in modern NBA media have been as loud or as long as Stephen A. Smith versus Isiah Thomas, and in May 2024, it exploded again. This time, the spark was Jaylen Brown. At St. Joseph High School, Isiah dominated. Recruiters flooded their apartment. Scholarships meant opportunity the family had never known. His mother chose Indiana University, education first. Under Bob Knight's brutal discipline, Thomas thrived. He earned a degree while building a pro career, later adding a master's focused on education and opportunity for Black athletes. On the court, he became a legend. Drafted second overall in 1981, Thomas transformed Detroit into the Bad Boys dynasty. 2 championships, a finals MVP, 12 All-Star selections. The Pistons weren't just physical, they were precise, strategic. Thomas engineered the Jordan rules, a system built on intelligence and discipline, not chaos. It took brilliance to run it and leadership to enforce it. Isiah Thomas built a culture rooted in the underdog mindset, turning doubt into fuel. Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, Rick Mahorn, players who didn't outshine opponents with finesse, but outworked them with discipline and belief. Thomas was the engine. His legacy was forged in moments, none bigger than Game 6 of the 1988 NBA Finals, playing on a severely sprained ankle, erupting for 25 points in a single quarter. Pain didn't stop him. It defined him. That was Isiah Thomas at his peak. But the next chapter, off the court, was far more complicated. As a Raptors executive in the mid-90s, Thomas helped build an expansion franchise from scratch. He drafted Damon Stoudemire, identified Tracy McGrady, brought in Vince Carter. The wins were few, but the foundation was real. Still, clashes with ownership over control and spending cut the experiment short. The lesson was clear. Seeing talent wasn't the problem. Managing power was. As a head coach in Indiana, Thomas delivered solid but unspectacular results. Early playoff exits. Veteran stars who still saw him as a peer, not a commander. When Larry Bird returned to power, Thomas was out fast. Leadership on the court didn't always translate to authority on the sidelines. Away from basketball, Thomas's life was equally complex. Married since 1985, his relationship with Lynn endured relocations, scandals, lawsuits, and financial pressure. Together, they raised children who carved independent paths, consulting, family intact. In later years, priorities shifted. He slowed down, reconnected, focused on presence over pursuit, involved his children in business, not legacy. And by 2025, the story took another turn. Isiah Thomas rebuilt, quietly. His wealth didn't come from basketball checks. It came from investments, smart ones. Through his holding company, Isiah International, he assembled a diverse portfolio across emerging markets, many serving underserved communities. It wasn't a comeback tour, it was a reinvention. He was building big. Through Isiah Real Estate, he's developing a $300 million mixed-use project in Chicago's Illinois Medical District. Affordable housing, medical facilities, commercial space, a development designed to generate returns while restoring the communities that shaped him. Sustainability is another pillar. Thomas co-owns waste removal and recycling companies with his daughter, Lauren, businesses positioned at the intersection of profit and environmental responsibility. As cities tighten regulations, demand for smarter waste solutions keeps rising. His companies are ready. Then there's cannabis. As CEO of One World Pharma, Thomas entered the legal marijuana industry, not just for growth, but for equity. His focus, ensuring communities harmed by past drug policies have ownership opportunities in legalization's future. Venture built on global distribution, French heritage, and basketball culture. Together, these ventures generate an estimated $20 million annually. Diversification is the strategy. Protection is the result. Real estate, environmental services, cannabis, luxury goods, technology, multiple streams, no single point of failure. Basketball, however, never left him. For the 2025-26 season, Thomas returns as a head coach in the Basketball Super League. This, for many viewers, it's a reminder of just how deeply he understands basketball.